The stage was set. Bright studio lights beamed down on the sleek, modern set of American Perspectives Tonight, a prime-time show known for its heated political and cultural debates. At the center of it all sat Elon Musk, the visionary billionaire whose influence stretched far beyond technology and business. His posture was poised, his expression composed, and yet there was something about him that made the air in the studio feel electric. Across from him sat Alan Brooks, a veteran journalist with a reputation for being sharp, unfiltered, and relentless in his questioning. A man who prided himself on breaking down his guests, exposing the flaws in their logic, making them squirm under the heat of his scrutiny. Millions were watching. The anticipation was thick, not just in the studio, but across the country. The debate had been marketed as a conversation on innovation, leadership, and the future of humanity. But everyone knew it would turn into something bigger. Elon had built a name for himself as someone who challenged conventional thinking, someone who pursued solutions that others dismissed as impossible. Alan, on the other hand, was infamous for pushing his guests into uncomfortable corners, forcing them to defend their ideas in ways they never expected. For the first 20 minutes, it was a standard back and forth: economics, AI, space exploration. Elon, as always, was direct, methodical, and precise in his answers. He wasn't just answering questions, he was constructing an argument, one that couldn't be easily picked apart. But then Alan shifted in his chair. His eyes narrowed, just slightly. A movement only a seasoned debater would notice. He was preparing to go in for something different, something personal. The energy in the room changed, as if everyone, producers, cameramen, audience members, sensed that the conversation was about to take a sharp turn. Alan cleared his throat. Elon, you often speak about the future of humanity, about colonizing Mars, about AI, about scientific progress. But let's be honest, science has given us answers that religion never could. And yet, you've expressed belief in something greater, something beyond the material world. Elon remained still. He knew where this was going. Alan leaned forward, his voice measured, deliberate. With all your knowledge, all your data, do you still think faith has a place in the future of humanity? A murmur rippled through the studio audience. Elon didn't react immediately. He let the question settle, absorbing the weight of it. He knew that Alan wasn't just questioning his beliefs. He was challenging the very relevance of faith itself. Alan smirked, sensing an opportunity. I ask because there are millions of people who argue that faith is nothing more than an outdated crutch, something that holds people back rather than moves them forward. What do you say to that? The room felt tighter. The audience shifted in their seats. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of reaction. Alan had thrown a match into a dry field, and everyone was waiting to see if Elon would let it burn, or put out the fire with something unexpected. But Elon didn't rush to answer. Instead, he tilted his head slightly and gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. You say faith is an outdated crutch, he said, his voice calm, that it holds people back. But let me ask you something, Alan. He paused. What do people turn to when science doesn't have an answer? Alan's lips twitched. He didn't interrupt. Elon continued. It's easy to dismiss faith when life is comfortable, when everything is running smoothly, when your job is secure, when your family is healthy, when the world makes sense. But when the ground beneath you disappears, when your child is dying in a hospital bed, when the doctors say, there's nothing more we can do, what do you reach for then? The room was dead silent. Even the producers, normally whispering behind the cameras, were frozen in place. Alan adjusted his tie, but Elon wasn't finished. You see, Elon said, faith isn't about weakness. It's about resilience. It's about believing that even in the darkest moments, there's still meaning. You can call that naive, but I'd argue it's the very thing that has kept people from collapsing under the weight of suffering for thousands of years. Alan exhaled sharply, shifting in his chair. So you're saying belief is necessary for survival? Elon nodded. I'm saying belief is what makes survival worth something. Alan smirked, shaking his head. You're good, Elon. But let's talk facts. He gestured with his hand, as if resetting the conversation. Religious institutions have been responsible for some of the worst atrocities in history. Wars, oppression, corruption, and yet you defend faith as if it's only ever been a force for good. Elon's expression remained unreadable. I won't deny that people have done terrible things in the name of religion. But let's be fair. Faith has also been the foundation for some of the greatest acts of courage, sacrifice, and kindness in history. The abolition of slavery, the civil rights movement, countless hospitals, schools, and charities, started by people who believed their faith called them to help others. You can't erase that just because some have twisted faith for their own agendas. Alan sat back. He didn't have an immediate retort. Elon leaned forward slightly. But if you really want to know why I believe in faith, why I defend it, it's not because of history. It's because of something I learned a long time ago. Alan raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Elon's voice softened. That faith isn't about proof. It's about what keeps you standing when there is no proof. A hush fell over the studio. Elon continued, his tone unwavering. People think faith and science are at war. They're not. Science explains how things work. Faith answers the question science can't. Why? Alan tapped his fingers against the desk. His usual sharpness softened. You really believe that? Elon gave a small nod. I do. And I think, deep down, even skeptics know there's something more. Call it purpose. Call it destiny. Call it faith. But it's there. Alan opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The host quickly jumped in, sensing the shift in the room. Alan, do you have a response to that? Alan hesitated. Then, finally, he admitted, I think I need to process that. A murmur rippled through the audience. It wasn't the dramatic rebuttal they had expected. It wasn't an explosive takedown. It was something far more rare, a moment of honesty. And in that moment, something changed. The conversation didn't end there. It rippled outwards, across social media, across news networks, across dinner tables and quiet conversations. People weren't just reacting, they were listening. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the world.